Hello guys, how are you this evening? So as you all heard on Tuesday, or Monday, at lunch, you know who I work for. I work for Senator Capito. I'm her veterans rep. Something we have here is the United States of America Vietnam War commemoration. This came out of a presidential proclamation on May 25th, 2012, and the commemoration extends from Memorial Day 2012 through Veterans Day of 2025. Congress articulated 5 objectives for this commemoration: to thank and honor our veterans from the Vietnam War, to highlight the service of the armed forces during the Vietnam War and contributions to the federal agencies and governmental organizations that served with and support of the armed forces, to pay tribute to the contributions made up on the home front by the people of the United States during the Vietnam War, and to highlight the advances in technology, science, and medicine related to military research conducted during the Vietnam War, and finally, to recognize the contributions and sacrifices made by the allies of the United States during the Vietnam War. So what I'd like to do now is call up our Vietnam veterans and up to the stage here to receive a copy of the Presidential Proclamation, a I-cert for their cards or anything they would like, and also a Vietnam veteran pin on behalf of the grateful nation. First up, we have Sanja Adkins. Next, we have Mr. Bob Speaks. Next, we have Miss Brooke Russell. Our former director, Mr. Jim Davis. Mr. Frank Cooley. And Mr. David Hogue. I don't know why.
gentlemen. Sometimes thank yous are a little louder than others. And next up, I present our American Legion Mountaineer Boys State Director, Mr. Robbie Robinson.
Good evening, guys. It's me again. Where are my 4 tomb guards? Come up here a second, fellas. As I said in the reading, I said that when a tomb guard gets trained and after a period of time he receives his tomb guard pin. Each one of these gentlemen will receive a pin for being a Mountaineer Boys State Tomb Guard. Another tradition is that they receive a spent shell from the firing we had as a military tribute. So they will each get a spent shell from our honor guard. Let's give them a round of applause. If you can remember as far back as Sunday night, can you guys remember back to Sunday night? I didn't think so. But what I'd like you to do is look over at these signs that's either on that wall or that wall. And you see that's the American Legion Family banner. Now there's 4 names on there. You've seen all 4 of those people this week. I'm going to call up one of those individuals. He's the last name on the list. He's the director of the American Legion Riders, Mr. Cliff Shingleton. Cliff, you've changed. This is not Cliff, but that's okay. Do you want to talk about it?
Talk about is basically the money that we raised. Unfortunately, my husband Cliff couldn't be here, but he asked me. I'm Robin Shingleton. I've been in the journalism area most of the week. So what we did in May was we went around the state of West Virginia collecting money for Mountaineer Boys State and Rhododendron Girls State. And during that 4 days, we raised around $16,000, which will be split between Boys State and Girls State.
That's what your Legion family does for programs like ours. Thank you, guys. And I have one more thing to talk about, and I have a question for you guys. How many of you like money? Yeah? Well, You don't count. In your packet that you're going to get on Saturday, there's going to be a pamphlet in there for the National High School Oratorical Contest. Now, your former governor, Will Behrens, participated in that program last year, and he won the state final. Now, what he got for competing that was a full ride to any college in the state of West Virginia. He also, there's a series of contests that you go through, and he won money at each contest. Okay? Then he can go to national because he's the state winner and can win up to, what is it, Jim? $25,000. Now, what I'm asking you guys is to check out that pamphlet in your graduation pamphlet, look at it, find your Legion rep, because one of you out there could be the next scholarship winner of that. I would take a 4-year ride. How about you guys? Okay. So now, we told you all that. We've done all our stuff. We have a ceremony before we get started for the rest of the assembly. Okay? This is a ceremony about 4 Army chaplains from World War II. Oops, sorry. Excuse me. Oh, there. This is a very desirable ceremony that shows enduring examples of exemplary faith, courage, selflessness. It shows the 4 men you will learn about passed life's test of valor. We have some stuff up here. I'm going to call some guys up if they could please uncover. As I said, this is a very important and patriotic ceremony. Here to witness the ceremony, we will honor the 4 chaplains who showed heroic actions of bravery, exemplary faith, courage, selflessness for humanity, and valor. Please join me in prayer. Let us pray. Dear Lord, please grant me the wisdom to learn from the past. Let us use the knowledge to live our lives today. May your light shine upon us here. Amen. As I said, this is a story of 4 chaplains. Their brave actions aboard the United States transport ship Dorchester on the evening of February 2nd, 1943. The ship was making its way through the frigid Atlantic waters. The ship was packed to capacity with 902 servicemen, merchant marines, and civilian workers. Before we finish the story, I think you should know a little bit about these 4 chaplains that were aboard the ship.
Chaplain George Lansing Fox was born November 15, 1900, in Lewistown, Pennsylvania. In 1917, he lied about his age to enlist in the United States Marine Corps as a medic. At the end of World War I, he returned home and to school to become an accountant. Unfulfilled, he became a Methodist minister. When war broke out again, he told his wife he needed to re-enlist. He knew what the boys were about to face and wanted to be able to help them. He enlisted in World War II on August 8, 1942. Chaplain George Fox was the oldest of the 4 chaplains aboard the Dorchester. He was called the Little Minister as he only stood 5.5 feet tall. Chaplain Alexander David Good was born May 10th, 1911 in New York City. He was Jewish by faith. A high school scholar, Alexander Good also medaled in track and swimming. His goal was to follow his father and become a rabbi. Although he was assigned to a synagogue as a rabbi, he wanted to do more. He entered Johns Hopkins University and received his medical degree. He enlisted on August 9th, 1942. He was the youngest of the 4 chaplains aboard the ship. Chaplain Clark Vandersall Poling was born August 7th, 1910 in Columbus, Ohio, and was a member of the Dutch Reformed Church. Clark Poling was the 7th generation in an unbroken line of Dutch Reformed ministers. Before leaving for overseas, Clark asked his father, "Dad, don't pray for my safe return. Just pray that I shall do my duty and something more. Pray that I shall never be a coward. Pray that I shall have the strength, courage, and understanding of men. And especially pray that I shall be patient. Oh, Father, just pray that I shall be adequate." He enlisted on June 10th, 1942. Chaplain John Patrick Washington was born July 16, 1908 in Newark, New Jersey. He was Roman Catholic by faith. John Washington was in a large family. His love of music allowed him a chair in the church choir. He was a scrappy kid and a member of the South 12th Street Gang when he received the call to priesthood. He asked to be sent back to his old neighborhood where he understood the kids there. He returned as a parish priest, played ball in the streets with the kids, and organized youth baseball teams. Several of the boys in the neighborhood left to join the Army. He enlisted on May 9th, 1942.
Now that you know a little bit about the chaplains, we can complete the story. The United States Army transport ship Dorchester, once a luxury coastal liner, had been converted to an Army transport ship. Its mission, along with 2 other transport ships, were to transport personnel to Greenland, where they would be given final orders to go into Europe. The mission was designated SG-19 Convoy. 3 ships were being escorted by U.S. Coast Guard cutters, the Tampa, Escaba, and Comanche. The captain of the Dorchester was concerned and cautious. He knew he was in dangerous waters and ordered the ship's crew to stay on alert. The cutter Tampa had detected a submarine with its sonar. German U-boats were constantly prowling this vital shipping lane, and several had been shot and blasted and sunk. The ship was about 150 miles from its destination, but the captain ordered the men to sleep in their clothing and keep their life jackets on. Many soldiers sleeping deep in the hold of the ship disregarded that order because the engine room heat made it too unbearable. Others ignored the order because the life jackets were just uncomfortable. Shortly after midnight on February 3rd, 1943, a periscope cut through the Atlantic waters. In the crosshairs of the German submarine U-223, the Dorchester was spotted, and the order to fire was given. The torpedo hit the Dorchester decisively and deadly. The torpedo tore through the ship's engine room. The torpedo knocked out electricity, left the ship completely dark. Many of the men were trapped below deck. There was no lights, no power, a huge hole in the side of the ship, and due to safety concerns, there was no way to signal for distress. And land was nowhere in sight. The ship began to take on water rapidly, and it was sinking fast. The captain gave the order to abandon ship. Aboard ship, panic had ensued and set in. The 4 chaplains quickly spread out among the soldiers, trying to calm the frightened, tend to the wounded, comfort the anxious, and guide the disoriented to safety. Witnesses also remember hearing prayers for the dying from the chaplains. Some witnesses remarked hearing the chaplain's courage, and some saying the voices was the only thing that kept them going. When the life jacket supply ran out, the 4 chaplains gave their life jackets to the next man in line. One survivor stated, "It was the finest thing I had ever seen or hoped to see this side of heaven." The altruistic value and actions of these 4 chaplains constitute one of the most purest and spiritual and ethical acts a person can make. Now, when they gave their life jackets out, Rabbi Good didn't stop and say, "Are you a Jew?" Father Washington didn't call out for a Catholic. Nor did the 2 reverends call out for a Protestant. They just simply gave their jackets to the next man in line. There were 902 men aboard that ship that night. 672 died, leaving 230 survivors. The death toll made this event the nation's 3rd largest loss at sea in World War II of its kind. "Valor is a gift," Carl Sandburg said. "Those having it never know whether they have it until the test comes." The 4 chaplains were last seen on the sinking deck of the ship, arms interlocked, praying as the ship went down. Within 27 minutes, the Dorchester would slip beneath the Atlantic icy waters. Chaplain George Lansing Fox, Alexander David Good, Clark Vandersall Poling, and John Patrick Washington died February 3rd, 1943 at 12:55 a.m. in service of our nation. We will now place a rose in honor of each chaplain. We will also place a rose for the remaining members that perished on that terrible night.
Chaplain George Lansing Fox. Chaplain Alexander David Good. Chaplain Clark Vandersall Poling. Chaplain John Patrick Washington.
We now place a white rose for the remaining crew of the USS Dorchester. That concludes our ceremony for the 4 chaplains. I would like to pose a question to all of us gathered here today. If you were aboard that ship, would you give up your life jacket for someone you didn't even know? That's what these 4 men did in service of our nation. It was the true test of valor. Please join me in prayer again. Almighty God, leader over all, bless and consecrate this gathering. We thank you for our country and the brave men and women who serve to protect our nation under you. May you grant us peace and freedom as we live our lives for God and country. Amen. Thank you, gentlemen, for your attention.
Started somewhat of a landslide in their family. I don't know whether the rest of their family is thankful for it or not, but around 2003 was Robbie and Doug's first year here on staff as cottage counselors, and from there they brought along their sister, Nurse Hogue, their brother-in-law, David Hogue, and now their son, who is a Mountaineer Boy State citizen, Corey Robinson, who is in the bank. Gosh, geez, my brain is not firing on all cylinders this evening. So a huge thanks, especially you'll see them listed in the back of the manual as having received the Dombrowski Award as a family unit because they bring so much to our program. So a huge thanks to the Robinson and Hogue families. We talked about the multiple parts of our program this evening, and continuing on with our agenda this evening, I introduce Assistant Director Matt Sampson.
I'm proud to introduce to you tonight my West Point classmate who will speak to you on the topic of leadership. He is a native of Nicholas County, and he graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the United States Military Academy at West Point and commissioned in the Field Artillery. He subsequently earned a Master of Science in Cognitive Systems Engineering from The Ohio State University and returned to West Point to teach for a tour of 3 years in the Department of Behavioral Sciences and Leadership. He ultimately served 22 years of commissioned service in the United States Army, retiring as a lieutenant colonel in 2013. He has a wife of 30 years and 4 children. He presently resides in Clarksburg. I introduce to you Mark McMillion.
Can you hear me? All right, all right. We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about priorities. And as a leader, one of the most you have to set priorities for your organization, for your team, for your company, whoever you're part of. As leaders in your school, which you all are because you're here, you wouldn't be here if you weren't, for your school as well when you go back. Now, I'll also tell you that priorities start with you. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things in the world, me. And I hope that through me, you will see some of yourself and where you are. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to start where I was. Well, this is who I am really quick. So you see who quit, really, West Virginia native, West Point grad, blah, blah, blah. 22 years, lieutenant colonel. I did some other jobs besides teach at West Point. I got to go to NATO. Great exercise planner in Norway. Loved it. Germany, 2 tours in Iraq. Not fun, not my idea of a good vacation spot. I've been in business doing leadership training for the last 10 years. And I do have actually 32 years in July this year. So we're going to talk about marriage. We're going to talk about sex a little bit too in a little bit, all right? So pay attention. Hey, I got 4 kids, all right? I got 4 kids, so I've done it 4 times. I know that much. All right. So 30-some years ago, I was you. I was a rising senior in high school in Nicholas County High School in Summersville. Anybody from Nicholas County? Nobody from Nicholas County? Really? We'll fix that next year, Boys State. We'll fix that next year. All right, so there I was. I lived and died to start quarterback for my football team. Number 1 priority, no questions. I was that dumb kid going 4 or 5 mile runs carrying a football all through town. I had kids, I had 8-year-olds out there running patterns. For me, anybody could catch a football. I was out there. I wanted to be a quarterback. I wanted to start quarterback for 4 years. For 4 years. I mean, that was my raison d'etre, as they say in France. My reason for being. That was my number 1 priority. And I did it. 1986, the high school football season, I started the first 3 games for Nicholas County High School. All away games. And we lost all 3 games. We lost all 3 games. Coach said, we got to change something. They changed quarterback. And I tell you, it was a bitter pill. So I had a choice. I could fold and be useless, or I could be a linebacker and be rough. And I was a linebacker, and I was a good linebacker because I liked hitting people. I liked crunching people, and I was pretty good at it. And I was a far better linebacker than I was a quarterback. But that's the thing. When you're part of a team, it's not about you. It's about what the team needs. Sometimes we forget that. We get so caught up in our personal goals, our personal objectives, our personal priorities, that we forget that we're functioning as part of a larger group. But football was not a number 1 priority. We're going to come, I'll recap all of this. Number 2 priority, I want to start on the basketball team. Yeah, I know. You like those legs, don't you? Yeah. That's all right. I get it. I get that a lot. Everybody loves my legs. So I really wanted to start on the basketball team and win some games. And I did. I started on that basketball team. And we won a few games, not as many as I'd like. And I played my heart out. I was not a great basketball player. But I was that kid stepping up to take the charge. If the ball was on the floor, it was mine. If the other kid arm came with it, that was his problem because it was my basketball. Josiah Corley, I know you know what I'm talking about. My chocolate chip cookie, I don't know where Josiah is. My coach Josiah, 10 years ago, I don't know, a long time ago. But what I found out was I busted my rear end every day. I worked hard. I busted my rear end every day in practice. I didn't take a play off. And we still had a crap basketball team. And what I found was me doing the best I can do is not good enough. And that's not what leaders do. Leaders make other people better. You got to be your best, no question. But if you want to be a leader, you lift your organization up. You lift your team up. You influence other people. We had talented kids. What we didn't have was leadership. We didn't have leadership very good leadership from the coaches, and I was not the leader that I should have been as a peer leader. And that's tough. And that's tough. That was my number 2 priority. Number 3. Well, that was me there in action. Still those great sexy legs. That was my You forgot what girls look like, didn't you? My number 3 priority was chasing girls. I thought that was really, really important. And I caught a few girls. I caught a couple of them. But I learned some lessons. Along the way. And what I would tell you is you need to date more than one girl in high school. And I don't mean stomp on anybody's true love. You need to date several girls. Now, I'm not talking about being a player. I'm not talking about hit it and quit it. That's not what I'm talking about. You can do that. But I will tell you that's not the best one. Now, I will tell you, honestly, I think you should wait till you get married to have sex. I also know some of you are not going to do that. You got to protect yourself. I have 4 kids, and I love my kids. I love my kids. I got 2 daughters, I got 2 sons, and I love them. But I didn't have kids until I was 28. I was 6 years into my Army career. When we had kids, my wife and I had kids, I was able to feed those kids. I was able to clothe those kids. I was able to put a roof over those kids. I didn't need my mommy and daddy picking up my slack. I had it. And that's what I would encourage you. Wait till you're ready, till you can handle that responsibility, because your life changes immensely. And if it doesn't change immensely, then you're not doing it right, Dad. Then you're not doing it right. So, for those of you who are not going to abstain, you need to use contraceptives. I'm not here to blow smoke. I'm here to tell you some truth. All right? And you can say, oh, that's the girl's responsibility. Buddy, it's you. It's your responsibility. It's you. And I say that for a couple reasons. One, as a leader, you got to own your actions. You have to take responsibility for your actions. That's what great leaders do. And that's a big action to take. and you need to take care of business. 2, it happens, there are girls that will lie about using contraception because they want a baby. Maybe they want your baby, maybe they just want a baby. But you're on the hook, and you have responsibilities. So take care of yourself. But I'll also tell you, most importantly, I've been married 32 years. Now, I'd love to tell you every year, every day of 32 years has been wedded bliss. It hasn't. Marriage takes work. My wife still does things that make me mad every day, and I know I do things that irritate the crap out of her every day. But we're committed to each. We didn't get married on a 30-day trial basis. We got married to say this is it for life. So when you make that decision, it's a big decision. Give it the gravity it deserves. Because marriages often cause babies. It just happens. All right. That was my number 3 priority. My number 4 priority was to go to West Point. I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to be a leader. More than anything else. I knew I was a pretty good high school athlete, but I knew I wasn't going to play college ball. I wasn't that good. I loved it. I love sports. I still love sports. But I knew my future didn't lie. I wasn't going to the NFL. I wasn't going to the NBA. And I knew that I probably wasn't going to be a rocket scientist. But I was pretty smart. But I wanted to go to West Point. I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to serve America, my country. We get stuck so many times in America today on how we are different from one another. Whether it's different faiths, whether it's different skin colors, ethnicity, religions, race, gender, whatever. But what we're missing is how much we're alike, how much we have in common. And that's why united we stand, divided we. It's why that phrase is so powerful, and you've heard it your whole life, because it matters. So my 4th priority was to go to West Point, and I made it. So my sophomore year in high school, I went to my guidance counselor. I said, hey, I want to go to West Point. And she looked at me, kind of that look adults get when you're a little kid, like, oh, that's so cute. You know, they pat you on the head. She said, I don't think they're looking for small-town boys from West Virginia. My guidance counselor, she did not encourage me. She discouraged me from doing it. Worst advice ever. Go big or go home. Find your goal. Find your goal and go get it. Go get it. There's always haters. There's always people who want to pull you down, and there's always people who want to push you down to try and elevate themselves. Tune them out. Get away from them. Create space. Be you and be the best you can be, but find that big goal and go get it. And that's what I did when I went to West Point. Those are my priorities. Those are my priorities. Now, I give myself credit because I knew what these were. These were very clear in my head, and my actions reflected those. What I did reflected what I wanted. Talk is cheap. People say all kinds of stuff, right? Oh, I want to do this. I want to play football. Okay. Are you in the weight room? Are you working out? What are you doing to get ready? Oh, I want to be in a band. Are you practicing on your instrument? What are you doing to make that so? Actions speak far more loudly than words ever will. So I don't want to put you to sleep. You got any questions for me? Any questions at all? Yes. Say again. I couldn't count that many. I couldn't count that high. I'll be honest with you, I don't know. And there's a reason, right? Because if everything is a priority, then what? Nothing is a priority, exactly. So you got to keep that, I would keep that 3 to 5. I would keep that 3 to 5. Yes?
Sir, do you have any tips for achieving number 3?
Absolutely. Let me tell you how you make a relationship with a woman. Respect. You give a woman respect. Hey, I got it. I will tell you, you go look at under the Christmas tree at Christmas, and you can pick the prettiest, most beautifully wrapped package, right? That doesn't mean that's the best gift under the tree, though. Right? So that girl, you may like the shape of her, you might like her hair, her eyes, or whatever. That's fine. But there's more to a girl than what she looks like on the outside. Question. Yep.
Football can be hard on the body. I ride bulls. I've won some things out of it, but I've also paid some prices out of it.
Yep.
Did you let anything like that stop you from your goal?
I was blessed that I never had a serious injury in high school. I was very blessed. I mean, so that didn't happen to me. And I part of that is taking care of yourself, eating right, a lot of exercise. But I will tell you, it catches up with you. I'm 54 years old. I've had both knees, total knee replacements, and I've had a shoulder completely replaced. That's a lot for a guy my age. I know you think I'm older than dirt, but that's a lot for a guy my age. So I don't know what to tell you except you got to power through that stuff the best you can. And you may have to adjust fire based on some limitations because there's some stuff you just, yeah. Now or in the day? My best bench ever, I put up 275 3 times. But that was a long time ago. So now it's not that much because that shoulder doesn't work right. That shoulder doesn't work exactly right. So it's not that good. Yes?
So you said you have 4 children, right?
Yep.
When you first got that mission, finding out that you were going to have your first baby, what made you continue and keep the courage to keep on fighting for your children?
To have more children or just stay with it? To stay with it? When you have, I'll tell you, and I kid you not, when my wife had we had our first baby together. So the baby's delivered, and babies are ugly when they come out. They're just all scrunched up, and they're like, ugh. But there's something happens up here in your head, right? So they let me carry her from the delivery room over to the cleanup room. And I'm carrying this little girl. She had this big head full of black hair, and I'm thinking she's the most beautiful, ugliest little thing I've ever seen. And I swear to God, I'm walking across, the first thing I thought after how beautiful it was is, oh my God, someday she's going to be a teenager. And I was like, oh, because I was close enough to remember how I was as a boy with a teenager chasing teenage girls. So I was like, I got to armor her up on that. But in terms of strength, there's something magical happens when that baby comes in the world. I'm not going to speak for everybody. I'll tell you what I experienced. That it blows you up. It blows you up inside of energy and light, but it'll also tell you there's a weight on your shoulders like, oh, I got to take care of this kid. So we say, and one of the things we did is we saved money for college. And my daughter, God bless her, she's smart. So my first daughter graduated undergrad debt-free because of what we saved in her scholarships. Marshall University. Saw somebody wearing a Marshall shirt. There you go. I'm a fan. My second daughter, she just graduated this spring, Marshall University, debt-free. She's going to med school this summer, so I'm pretty proud of that. It's hard. Give me a question up, yeah, in the back. I think some of the joy is in the chasing, right? In the pursuit. But the reality is, if all you're thinking about is chasing, then you're treating it like a trophy, right? Or like a ribbon. And that's not the way it is. You're not carving notches on your gun, okay? It's not like it. It happens. So yeah, if you see a girl you like, you think something up, then absolutely you should, hey, you know what? You seem like a good person. I'd like to get you know better. Let's go out. They won't always. Yeah. Great question. And I will tell you, West Point, I hated it. It was hard. It was miserable. But you keep your eyes on the prize. Where you're going, the end state. What do you want to do? I want to be an officer in the United States Army. So I'm going to get through this. You can't let the suffering day to day cloud that picture you make of where you want to be. Right? You in the weight room, it hurts. You know, that first rep doesn't build muscle. That third rep doesn't build muscle. The rep that builds the muscle when you're lifting weights is the one where you're straining. All that other stuff is just a prelude. When you feel those veins cording up in your neck and those muscles pumping, and your buddy's like, you got it, because he's spotting you, right, because you're being safe. That's the rep that makes you strong, and that's what you got to get through. But you do it by keeping your eye on the finish line, not where you are in that moment. If you do, you'll get lost in the trees instead of going through the forest. Yeah?
Where was money on the list?
Wasn't. It just was not. At that time, now I will tell you in fairness, I was very blessed. My parents were together. We were lower middle class. My father went through a bankruptcy, but we never missed a meal. I was secure from that standpoint. Going through high school, I mowed a ton of grass, and I shoveled a ton of snow. But all the money I really wanted was money to go to the movies with a girl, go to McDonald's once in a while. Of course, we didn't have McDonald's. I was in high school in Summersville. But money just was not, I was lucky. I was very lucky in that regard. I didn't have that need, but I didn't have a lot of desires either. So, you know, Sheryl Crow in a song says the secret of being happy is not getting what you want, it's wanting what you have, or something like that. And that's a big difference, and that's hard. Yeah?
So you kept saying that how you had all these goals in your mind, and you were even discouraged by certain people that should have been leaders to not do it. So how did you go about completing these goals when you had them in your head?
When I wanted to go, my parents are not politically connected whatsoever, not politically active whatsoever. I wanted to go to West Point. I figured it out. I read it. We didn't have the internet, right? Internet's easy. Now you find anything you want in 5 minutes. But I figured it out. I got a book on West Point from the library or something. That's a place used to have a lot of books and people would go and read and stuff. But one of the things you needed to do was get a nomination from a congressman or a senator, like Capito. I think Senator Capito came and spoke to you. I don't know if Senator Manchin did or not, but you know, you do that. Well, we didn't know anybody. We didn't have any, but my congressman was a guy named Bob Wise, later became governor of West Virginia. And so you have these festivals in town, right? We had the Potato Festival in Summersville. They still do. And Bob Wise would come, and you know, the politicians walk in the parade. So starting my sophomore year, I would walk out in that parade, say, Congressman Wise, my name is Martin McMillion, and I want to go to West Point. And he's like, okay, kid. And so about 2 years passed, I come out of the crowd. He's like, I know, Martin McMillion, you want to go to West Point. And I got that nomination to go to West Point. That's what I did. The other thing I did, is I worked hard in high school. I didn't work that hard in classes because grades came easy to me in high school, but I worked hard in doing a lot of other stuff. Student council, honor society, football team, basketball team. I was active in a whole wide variety of things. I just knew what I wanted, I went after it. Yeah. I tried to. I just saw 2 boys made all-state baseball. Pitcher and a catcher, if I'm not mistaken. You from Nicholas County? James Monroe? All right. I know you boys play hard and kind of beat up on them once in a while. I don't like that. Stop it. Yeah. That's all right. That's all right. My oldest daughter's 26. My oldest daughter's 26. My youngest daughter is 21. 21. You want to call them up? You call them up. They'll put the smack down on you, though, if you're not right. If you're not right. Yeah. Great question. How do you balance military with family life? You don't. The military demands. The military doesn't ask. The military doesn't suggest. The military says, this is you, this is it. So when I was in the Army, my number one priority was military service, was being a soldier. And I was blessed that my wife understood that. And she was okay with that. If military's not, how do you pack up your bags for 12 months and go to Baghdad and leave your wife alone with 2 daughters, 2 little kids at home? That's not easy. You miss birthdays, you miss Christmases, you miss anniversaries. First, my wife and I, out of our first 25 anniversaries, I think it was 14 or 15 of them, we were not together. I was deployed, I was training, I was in the field, I was doing something else. It takes a toll on family lives. So, a lot of times you meet veterans, you say, hey, thank you for your service. And that's nice, that's respectful, and I like that. Go find their family, because they're paying an even bigger price. And people don't understand that. It takes a team. It takes a team to be a military family. Maybe one more question? We good? Yeah. Squat. My school didn't have a weightlifting program then, so I didn't squat. That's why I had those legs. You saw the legs? Those don't look like squatters' legs. Okay, just to wrap things up, you serve the team to what the team needs. It's not about you, it's what the team needs. My dream of being a quarterback became second to what my team needed. It's not enough to be the best you can be. The Army's bringing that back, that phrase, be all you can be. The Army's bringing that motto back, which I love as a recruiting motto. And the Army needs you. The Army needs you. I'll give you that little recruiting pitch right here. Raise your hand, I'll swear you in. I'm an officer, I can do that. But leaders elevate other people. You make other people better. And sometimes that means holding yourself back so you don't overshadow them. Give other people their moment in the sun. Help them grow. You got to respect women, and you got to protect yourself. You incorporate those into your value system. You marry those up, and your values uphold your priorities and make that happen. You got to think long term, just like we talked about. How do you keep going through tough times? Tough times don't last. Tough people do. Not many things last forever. Our nation's is struggling with suicide. Veterans struggle with suicide. Suicide is a permanent answer to a short-term situation. And I'll tell you, you got friends, you got people in your schools, some of them are struggling. You never know what's going on in someone else's home. You never know. Give them a break. You see a kid changing his or her behavior drastically. Hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Everything all right? You don't have to dig knee deep in their business, but show some concern. You could save a life. We said this stuff. Know yourself and seek self-improvement. Leaders do that. The status quo, things as they are, is never good enough. You got to keep getting better. I was at the Ohio State football camp yesterday, and one of the things they talked about is every day get better. Get better. Because if you're not better, you're not trying to get better, what are you doing? What are you doing? All right. Hey, this is my contact information. You got questions? Email me. Text me. I'll answer. I'll take a few minutes and answer you. I'll be glad to do that. I don't mind. I really appreciate your attention. I appreciate how respectful you've been. I think that the Vietnam guys all leave, Vietnam folks all leave. Still here. Very different reception you got 50-some years ago. 50-some years ago, Vietnam guys were coming back from Vietnam. I applaud you for your patriotism and your love of country and what you're doing here. Thank you. Have a great evening.